The purpose of this video is to show you how you can reduce your teacher workload by using an AI tool to help you summarize larger files. And when you do this, it's also possible that you can engage in a concept known as habit stacking. So, the tool that I'll specifically be showing you to use for this is NotebookLM. Let's say that you are headed into a professional development session where you've been asked to read a 30-page article. Of course, that would have to happen after school hours, outside of the regular workday. Or perhaps you're preparing for a lesson with content that you're unfamiliar with. And so you've been looking at several different sources and you're trying to come up with what it is you're going to teach to the students. So habit stacking allows you to take that content and pair it with something else that you would be doing. In this instance, you want to use a tool that's going to allow you to create the content that you could listen to audio-wise, but then you wouldn't have to be engaged with it visually. So NotebookLM lets you do exactly that. Coming over to this tab, you can see that I already have a working notebook created. However, this Create New option right here within NotebookLM is what you want to click. When you click that, it brings up the creation of a notebook. So think of it as a binder that you have that you're adding in source material that you want to use. As you can see, you can upload any type of source, whether it's from your Google Workspace, specific links, or pasting something into here. For me, I'm going to choose File because I happen to have 3 articles or studies waiting for me. I'm using an example where, as a high school debate teacher, I sometimes have to learn about topics that I know very little about. So I went out and I found 3 really well-researched reports that were conducted for different organizations and pulled those. I'm opening each of those articles into this notebook right here. You can see that as the sources get added in, and it has my 3 sources, it's going to generate some information about it. So the topic that I specifically was researching was globalization versus protectionist policies in developing nations. And in the debate world, it really is sometimes difficult having to learn about topics that you know nothing about very quickly. For the podcast option, over in the studio on the right-hand side of the screen, I can see that there are a few options, but I'm going to generate an AI podcast here based on your sources. As you can see me reading the text bubble that pops up, but that's specifically under the studio, it's the audio overview. So I will click this button, and what's going to happen is it's going to start generating this audio for me, and it's going to take a few minutes. So I'll pause and I'll come back to this, but just know that this is where we're going to get that information in podcast form. All right, for full transparency, that took about 10 minutes. But as you can see, the podcast is ready. So let's get ready to listen.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is January 19th, 2026. And I have to say, if you're anything like me, you've spent the last 12 months watching the price of, well, basically everything go up and wondering, is this the new normal?
It is the question on everyone's mind, isn't it?
I mean, just think back to where we were a year ago versus now. We've had headlines just screaming about trade wars, these massive tariffs, alliances fracturing.
Right.
There's this heavy feeling that the era of click a button, get a cheap gadget from halfway across the world is, officially over. It feels like the walls are going up everywhere.
That is certainly the prevailing mood.
Yeah.
The narrative that globalization is dead.
Right. And honestly, it feels true. But today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to treat this like a detective story.
Okay.
Because I've been looking at this stack of research you brought in. We've got papers from Bruegel, Bocconi University, World Cultures, and they seem to suggest that there is a massive crime scene, but the body is missing.
So we'll stop at the 1-minute mark. That gives you a preview of what we're working with. It makes the content more personalized. I'm not saying that it should replace the actual research you're doing. You can see that I was still doing some research, and there probably are podcasts out there that are helpful. But when you need uniquely personalized information, or you've been given something to read, this can allow you to do that habit stacking concept, because the actual podcast itself is just under 15 minutes long. You can put it on while you're in the middle of cooking, or like I said, while you're driving, or transitioning between things that you might be doing in your classroom after school during your conference period. And this is probably more doable for you than sitting down to read the 80 pages that I loaded in. So that gives you just one tool and one way that you can use it. I hope you found this helpful and that the future videos I make like this will be helpful to you as well.